communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced that the House has amended and passed engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 361, eliminating prevailing hourly wage requirement for construction of public improvements.
Message will be received. Senator from Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in House amendments to engross Senate Bill 361. Happy to explain a couple of those amendments. Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is the commonly referred to as the Prevailing Wage Bill. The House made a couple of changes, and I'll go over those briefly and be glad to answer any questions. First couple of items were definitions of public money, wages, board, and a couple of things like that. One of the items that was what I would refer to as fairly substantive is they changed the reference to compensation. I don't know if this is coming through. Can you hear it? Changed the reference to compensation and replaced it with the word wages. And we talked about that extensively with some of the groups involved, and they seem to be okay with that. The other area that I wanted to point out is that it clarifies language relating to the $500,000 threshold. And really what the language did was clarify these mixed projects in which there is a certain amount of public money and a certain amount of private money. And we didn't want the House did not want to get into the scenario in which the project itself may be over $500,000, but the public money was under $500,000. So they clarified that language and made sure that it is $500,000 of public money. The other area that is fairly significant, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail about this, is the provision that allowed the entity to calculate the prevailing wage. The House was unable to pass an effective date of the bill from passage, so that it really wouldn't have enabled the entity to create the prevailing wage in time for it to be implemented. And they put some provisions in here that said if there is not a prevailing wage calculated by the date certain, there would be no prevailing wage. And so what we're trying to do with agreeing to this, and we'll change the effective date, the House has agreed to this, to be April 13th. We'll make the effective date April 13th. The various groups that are involved in this discussions are okay with this. It allows them the opportunity to get the wage calculated by, it would be June 1st, and then the effective date would be July 1st, and no later. There is an extra time limitation given there that if for some reason it's not calculated, the Joint Committee they have until September 30th. So it puts some extra sort of security in place to make sure that the wage rates are calculated, and it gives an extra little window there to September 30th. A couple other things is that we made sure that there is put more constraints around the confidentiality of the surveys that are put forth, so that they we were very diligent about that as we passed it from the Senate, but we wanted to make sure, or the House wanted to make, double tie the shoelaces to make sure that this is absolutely confidential information. It couldn't be used for other purposes. One other item that they added was to clarify that the $500,000 threshold applies to projects that are bid with in excess of $500,000, and it doesn't calculate for these change order opportunities where a project may be bid for $200,000, and you start adding different projects and modifying it to the point where in a couple of years it might exceed $500,000. So they made sure and locked that language down. And then finally, they put forth some issues that would be addressed in rules to define regions of the state and classifications of various job classifications. I think that pretty much covers the amendments, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions. Yes.
Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Senator from Jackson yield?
Senator yield. The Senator from Marshall.
If I recall correctly, this study that was going to be done through the Marshall and WVU was going to be done based upon calculation of what we called compensation, which I think we understood when it left here would be both wages and fringe benefits. So I understand what they did. They took out the term compensation and restored it back to just wages. So does that mean, consequently, that there will be no consideration of the other fringe benefits that are paid, or have they refined the definition so that wages includes those benefits that are sometimes a significant part of the total compensation package of the employee?
Absolutely.
Paid by the employer.
Yep. Yes, sir. A great question, and it's our understanding, I just want to make sure I say it correctly, but it's our understanding that wages are to include, some areas provide for fringe benefits of the state, some areas do not. It was very explicit that, for instance, union dues and things like that would not be considered as part of your wages, but that there would be an accommodation for fringe benefits, health benefits, pension plans, those kind of things. Let me just, if you give me just one second. I stick with the answer that I provided. I think it was pretty much, yeah.
I'm just concerned because I've gotten several letters and some resolutions, in fact, passed by boards of directors of hospitals back home that are very concerned about the effect initially the bill of the repeal would have had on, the significant contribution made by the employer community back home, contractors, to providing health insurance benefits in particular that they felt really help support local and community hospitals back home, and we're concerned if those, with the repeal as initially envisioned, it could detrimentally affect the provision, the ability to deliver health care services at the hospital level, at least back home.
To the gentleman, again, you're right to raise the question about the difference between compensation and wages. It was pointed out to us that the two entities, West Virginia University and Marshall University Study Research Centers, will be accommodative of the fringe benefit package that is included in a wage or compensation package.
So it isn't just whatever's on your W-2, because in fact your fringe benefits aren't included on your W-2.
You're exactly right. Yes.
Right. Thanks for clearing that up.